Hey, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of 31 Days of Indie Horror. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got an awesome guest here. He hasn't been on last year's, so he's on this year's, and I'm sure I'll get him on next year's. Please welcome G Larry Butler. How you doing, Larry?
Hey! Yeah, it's wonderful. It's good to be here. It's good to be anywhere, actually.
Yeah, technically, and not disappeared. You know,
disappeared yet.
You haven't disappeared. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm afraid to blink. You know.
No, don't blink twice for sure.
For sure. So we are, as you can tell, we're going to be talking about the movie Don't Blink, which is on Tubi, and that's how I found it. I did not know anything about it. I didn't know. I think I might have known Brian Austin Green was the main star, but that's all I knew. I didn't know anything else. That's the guy who played Jack, the main guy.
He's the star of all of them, right? He's been in everything.
He's been in a lot of shit. Yeah, he's a big name. He's like Beverly Hills 90210 and
Landing, Terminator TV series.
I met him on I met him at Texas Frightmare weekend in Texas. And obviously in Texas, I would hope, right? Texas Frightmare. But I met him and he was one of the nicest guys, like just really down to earth. You come up, he would sign something for free, I mean, not all the time. I mean, obviously if you had something, whatever, but he did sign one of my posters for free that I had or whatever. And he was just a really nice guy, so I adored that he was in this movie. I think he also associate produced or something, the film. He had some kind of producer credit. Associate producer. And so did Mina Savari, who's in it too. She had associate producer. I'm guessing they did that. So I don't know why, but sometimes actors do that because they love the project and they really want to help it out in some way or another.
So, well, a lot of them pay to play, basically. They give them that credit.
I don't think that's the case in that, but I think they got like maybe they took lesser pay in order to do like a to get like more in the back end kind of thing, for being in associate. I don't know that, so don't quote me on any of that. I do know Zach Ward, who played Alex in it. He was the producer of it, so that's awesome. So I've known Zach Ward because of Christmas Story. I don't know if you ever saw that movie back in the day.
Christmas Story.
Yeah, it plays on like TBS every year for like, I don't know if you have cable or satellite or anything, but it plays like on TBS or TNT. What?
It was in A Christmas Story with John Denver. But that's a different Christmas story.
That's a different Christmas story, which is funny because there was a John Denver song in this movie.
Oh, that's a tie-in.
That is a tie-in. It's a good tie-in. But there was it starts off with the John Denver song. So I thought that was kind of cool. And also kind of interesting that he died in a plane crash or whatever. So maybe like it was sort of not a good omen that they were listening to John Denver on their way to that resort,
Yeah. Huh. Well, Mina Savari she's been on everything. American Beauty, American Pie. And I remember her from 6 Feet Under. I love that TV show.
Yeah.
About the funeral part of the people. It was a whole family. And they're all
I know of it. I've never seen it, but Jeremy Sisto is in that, and I absolutely think he's like one of the best actors that's out right now. Like I think that guy's so freaking good. And so I want to check that out at some point. There's those shows that you want to see, but you're just like, I'd really have to like invest time and like, because it's like so many seasons. I think they're like 6 or 8 seasons.
Just do one season, if that'd be enough. But
just to see if you're like, if you like it or not.
It's so kooky and kinky.
I'm not one of those people that can just watch one season though. Like if I if I'm into it, I'm gonna watch the whole damn thing.
Okay. Well,
So I mean, that's gonna end up happening if I end up going down that rabbit hole.
you gotta have the whole pie, not just one piece, right?
The whole American Pie for sure. Going back to Mina
I'm
Savari.
gonna hide my pie when I come over to visit.
Yeah, you better. Um, I don't know what that meant. That did not sound very good. All right, we're moving on. So basically, let's talk about the story a little bit. So the story of the film is that these bunch of these friends, I don't know how many there was, like
Yeah,
9,
yeah.
10, 10 friends. Some people didn't know each other. Like there's a new guy that didn't know them that was like dating one of the girls.
Boyfriend, yeah.
Yeah, the new boyfriend. And so but then there was like it seemed like there was a little drama between like the ex,
Well,
girlfriend and,
yeah.
little stuff with that. And so, it's always sort of like that. You have to have the little drama, like you have to have the thing where the people are like, I don't know why they're like, we just did one earlier. My friend Colleen and I did Crocodile, and there was a little bit of a like drama between some of the people, in there that like, oh my god, why is she coming? Because now she's the girl who likes the guy, and now the girlfriend's coming. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And then so there's always going to be that little drama, because you can't have a movie with a bunch of people either in the college age or high school age that don't have drama. you know, like it's just
Right.
that ain't gonna happen. So they get to this place, they find out this resort, and they find out that like nobody is there. There's nobody to check them in. There's food on the table and that's cold. So obviously they were there before and a lot of it was unfinished, and there's just a lot of stuff going on there. I thought it was interesting, the boots in the bathroom scene. There's, by the way, there will be spoilers in this because there's just no way to talk about this movie without spoilers. So just be prepared.
Yeah.
Anyway, going on, there's there's like boots in the bathroom, and I guess pee it looked like or something, and he thought like the girl had like melted or whatever. I don't know. It was weird. But because, like, and that was a good thought, because they probably crossed my mind for a second. Like, okay, so maybe people are melting and that's why like nobody's here. You don't know at first. And then people start disappearing one by one. And it's always when somebody's not paying attention to them, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, they're focusing on everybody else. That one person's like out of the mix, and then, they disappear.
If you're not carefully focused on what's happening on each individual person, you're going to miss their disappearance. And it's kind of like a sleight of hand in a magic show. And that's the warning to the audience as well as the victims. Don't blink, because you're going to miss the people disappearing.
Well, also, do you think that's also a sort of a because I read a comment on a YouTube video like review, and somebody said that it was a metaphor for like, just enjoying your life, like, focus on the present, focus on what's going on right now, because if you don't blink you'll miss it, kind of thing. So I don't know, like there's a little bit of that there,
Live your life like there's no tomorrow, right?
Yep. So
I read somewhere that they said that the review, they said with such a large cast, we don't care much about the first few people who disappear, but do more as the group thins out. And I wonder what you thought about that. Did you care about the first few? There's so many people. It's like,
well, you're supposed to sort of care for the Mina Savari's character, who she got like billed first, but she's only in it for like 10 minutes of the movie.
okay,
I mean, she's Tracy, the one that just kind of disappears
yeah,
like
right.
second, or whatever. and the girlfriend of the guy of Brian Austin Green, um, but Green's character Jack. So Jack's girlfriend who was pregnant, and so you're sort of, I think you're supposed to sort of feel sorry for her because you as the audience already know she's pregnant, so you kind of feel sorry, like what is going on with this girl, like what happened, is she okay, is the baby okay? I mean, that crossed my mind of like, where do you go, where are you going? Because we do find out later, and I guess I'll bring this up now because I do want to get your opinion on it, but we do find out later that you can return from this place. They do like spit you back out into like some kind of
The Noah character reappears.
Yes, he reappears,
And
but
of
he's
course,
the only one.
they drug him back out because the guy suspected.
And he
it.
disappears again. So like,
Yeah. So he really did disappear that time. But they
I know,
shot
but
him. The crazy, was it Alex?
Alex, yeah, crazy Alex did that. But I mean, we'll definitely get to that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just wondering because everybody kind of disappears, but he's the only one to reappear, even though he disappears again. So it's a little.
The logic doesn't hold water totally, because remember when the two have sex? I think God, I can't remember their names now, but Ellie and somebody else go upstairs.
Jack. Yeah.
And he rolls over for a second and rolls back over. She's gone. It's
right.
Like the whole thing about that you're supposed to be with your partner and they won't disappear.
Well, right. But I don't know. I was wondering about this and I wanted to see what you thought. But there was also that scene where she was sort of changing, to go into the bed and everything. Right. And he kind of doesn't look at her.
Right.
For a little bit. And I'm wondering, why didn't she disappear? Or why, when he was by himself,
Yeah.
Like, why didn't, after that, why didn't he just disappear?
Right. And the time when Sam steals a car half filled with gas and goes 20 feet and disappears.
Right.
There's a woman in the car, one of the girls.
Right. But she probably took her eye off him for a second.
Well, we assume, but
right, we don't know. But I'm assuming that because
in his direction. So there are some either flaws or holes in the theory, or maybe they're just toying with us. This unseen force that the villain, that's the main villain of the piece, an unseen force. And we just assume there's no conniving calculation behind it. It's a force of nature, but maybe it's some kind of a villainous mind that's behind all of this. So we never know. So
we never know. We never get the answer, which would piss off a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. People who like the answers to their mystery are very.
But see, here's the problem with that. The director could have given an answer, and no matter what, we might not have been happy, right? Because you know what I mean. Because it could have been okay. So let's take for example. There's the director M. Night Shyamalan, right? He just made a movie called Old, and in that movie, in Old, there's people are getting old rapidly, right? And throughout like the whole day, somebody can go from like 5 years old to like 40, or 50, like in one day or something like that, or whatever it is. But the whole point is it's on this island. You can't escape. You don't know the reasoning, what's going on. When people start giving them like like when people start going, okay, I got it. It's, and they said like, it's like the Bible, it's us being hunted down by God or something, which I thought was silly because if that's the case, what they're really doing is that in that case, that would be like the end of the world, like thing where people like Left Behind. Have you ever seen that?
I know where you're going with this. It's God's retribution theory. And full of holes, because if the slut is still alive and the goody girl has vanished, then there's the whole.
They say that, but then I'm like, but maybe that was the point. maybe the good person went to
Well,
heaven, and they're still stuck, in their hell of like earth. That
well,
was that was an idea that I had in my head. And then that got smashed when people just start disappearing, period. Like the bad guy would disappear and the good, like there's no.
the Bible is full of cases like that where Jehovah demands that Abraham sacrifice his son, and he's a sadistic bastard. So that
Well, yeah, in the like, I guess in the Old Testament, God was like wrathful and
yeah,
vengeful and whatever. Then the New Testament, God's all like Jesus and stuff. So I don't know. I'm a Christian. I really do believe in this stuff, or whatever. So I truly, which is funny because Christianity and horror films tend to not, go well or whatever. But my opinion is that that is always kind of fun to see these kind of stories, but this wasn't a holy story. This wasn't a God story. This was I I don't even know, because I wanted to say alien, and you kind of like, so you sent me a text yesterday that had like an alien in it. And
one
I
of
was
those.
like, oh no, this is an alien movie we're watching. And then I watched it and I'm like, but there's really, I mean, if it is, we don't know that, because like aliens
Well,
typically, when you see them, they usually have the flying saucer that just abducts the people with like a light.
yeah,
And this doesn't happen. They just,
they're capable of anything. I always believed that the real gods were actually aliens, and they had a superior technology. And so to us, they were gods, but to the universe, they were just superior in a technological way.
maybe because
I've always said that. I'm not religious at all.
they
So,
do say, like, when they talk about God, and sometimes they say like superior being.
yeah,
So maybe,
we
I mean, whatever. I
most
don't.
of the Jews out of Israel to Israel from Egypt, they said, well, we only have one God now instead of many gods. I think that they came from different places in the universe. Some came from the Pleiades, and there was many, many gods. And then after a while, there was only the one, because they had a big nuclear war and it wiped out the other gods or whatever. And then there was the only one, but they're just a superior race of beings. And
Right.
so, you know,
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I like the show Supernatural. They throw like the God stuff in there, but it's really like a lot of times it's ghosts or demons or whatever,
yeah,
other things too. So I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. But this, once again, this wasn't a God thing, and this wasn't. I don't know if this is aliens. There's no proof. There's no nothing. Like we don't know what, at the end of the day, even if we had our best guess, I have this feeling that maybe the writer director knows, what it is in his head. And he just didn't want to, like, he wanted people to think about it, or he had no clue when he
guess
was
what?
making it.
Guess what?
What?
He's going to let us know there's a sequel and it's out already.
What?
There's a
There's a
sequel.
Don't Blink 2?
Well, it was supposed to come out this year. Let's put it that way, because it's done. And they were supposed to release it this year, but it hasn't come out maybe yet. But I wanted to know what your take was on that. About whether people. Do you think it's creepier that there was no villain to be seen, or would you prefer to have a slasher, somebody to point your finger at?
I honestly kind of like the mystery. It was funny. I talked to my dad about this at one point and told him, you know, the the plot, the story, and his response was, no, boo, you have to know what's going on. You have to know you can't just give you no ending, in a
But
way.
we do that hooked on Hitchcock.
Right.
Program. Didn't Hitchcock believe that there's more suspense and not seeing
Not seeing, or even not knowing,
in the
you know,
suspense?
this
So in a way, he was doing a kind of a thing on Hitchcock. But
maybe, but
I, in a way, was boring at times because of that. I'm like, oh well, somebody else disappeared. But I'd rather have just a hint of who the villain is. Show me a shadow, something in a cloak or anything, rather than nothing. But I was of two minds the whole time. But
One of my favorite scenes in the movie, honestly, was Alex saying noticing that like everybody just disappears without a trace. There's no blood, there's no
yes,
whatever, right? And then he shoots himself so that he can have the blood, and then his body disappears, and there's no trace, there's no blood.
And the blood stain, yes, as well as I couldn't figure out why his friend cut himself with glass and put his handprint on the desk. Remember that right before? He was trying to leave a trace too, but that disappeared right away.
Yep.
So no matter what they did, everything is swept clean.
Yep.
It just tells you of the futility of existence. It's existentialism.
You think it's kind of ironic that sort of like at the end of the movie, there's the sort of Men in Black, kind of like the right? They come in at the end.
The cavalry comes, right?
Right. And they get taken away. So even the cavalry, Robert
Picardo is known for making cameos. He was big in.
Oh God, I love that guy. I
absolutely with him, but he just does little cameos, and then he says, "Okay, we got it under control."
Was he Incompatible or what was he in?
No, I was in the Assassin's assistant.
Okay.
The second.
Okay.
So
well, he's just a fantastic actor. I would love to. I've had him on my radio show, by the way, once. Because I was interviewing somebody who was working with him. So he asked him to, he was like, do you want Robert Picardo to call in? I was like, yeah, but the problem was I had to talk about that movie. And I'm like, I want a whole show where I just like talk to him about his whole fucking career because he's the dude's done so much. I mean, him just doing one show, talking about one character is not enough. Like I need to know everything about him as an actor, but he's so good. But I was so surprised because I knew he was in it, and then it was getting about the 10-minute left, mark, and I was like, "Where's Robert Picardo?" And then when the cavalry arrived, I'm like, "He better be in this scene," and of course he was.
Yeah, but then even the girl disappears. Oh, that's a good spoiler.
Well, right, but she calls herself. I mean, she looks at herself and then she just lets herself go, I guess, because she thought, I mean, it's just gonna happen anyway,
They're not dead. Maybe they just went to a different dimension, So you think of it that way.
I don't know. If you say there's a sequel, then maybe we'll find out. Maybe that'll be part of the sequel. Is the whole maybe there's a whole dimension full of these people. But then again, it does not explain why the dude comes back. Like that,
Well, okay, it's part of formula. This is formulaic. I wrote down some of the things that are part of a formula that any good horror movie has. Number one, drama between friends. In this case, the ex.
Bickering.
Number two, suspicion of others in the group. Number three, plot twist. It's got to have that. Number four, the phone rings. And number five, the lights go out. So there's probably more than that.
Right.
It's all in there. It's all the good stuff you need.
Yeah. But it's all the stuff it is formula, but it's sort of done in different ways. I never even noticed it. Now that you're saying that, yeah, I get it. But before, I never even noticed it. So it didn't bother me.
I think the next thing's going to happen, the lights are going to go out. Sure enough, it did. I went, oh, God. I could predict what was going to happen next.
Because at that point, you're like, oh, my God, what are they going to do? Now that they can't see each other, are they going to be okay? And I guess them talking to each other and holding each other or touching each other.
Well, it has to be some kind of surprise, something different other than everybody disappears and gets a little boring. It's not horror anymore. Anything after 3, the formula 3 gets a little boring. Three shows the same way, everything. But what I enjoyed was that the whole theme of the movie was everything we've ever done doesn't matter.
Right.
But I disagree with that because our actions speak louder than ourselves, and we leave behind what we have done.
Right.
IMDb credits or whatever.
So is this director saying that when he dies, that this movie is just going to disappear, off the face of the planet, like the not showing any trace of him? Because that's not true. You're right. Absolutely. Everything we do actually does matter. So maybe not in this certain universe that this people created, because at the end of the day, these people disappear, and so, but what about their families, that are like going to probably be wondering where they are, or friends who are like, wait, I thought about that guy. Whatever happened to him? Like, no, we do leave, I mean, see, that's the problem that I have with a lot of people who commit suicide, which I mean, look, I understand if you're really, really fucking depressed and shit, that sucks, but if you commit suicide, people are going to be thinking about you, and you're going to be hurting a lot of people because they're going to be missing you, and you're always going to be in people's thoughts. So for these characters to kind of just disappear, it's not like nothing doesn't matter, right?
We both I agree on that. We disagree with the theme of the movie, which don't really matter.
Well, no, I mean, no, I agree with the theme. I agree that's the theme. I'm just saying that's a wrong theme. Like, I don't think that.
I don't agree with it at all.
Yeah, I don't agree with the theme. I think, like, I get it. Like, I get what they're saying. I get that they believe that especially that Alex believes that, truly, because he commits suicide. So once again, goes to my point of, like, he's trying to make people remember him in some way, and that's, and to me, I mean, like, I've had a lot of friends who've committed suicide, and it fucking sucks, because like there's so much they could have offered the world if they just stuck around. But when you're in pain, or you're scared, or in this case, you think it's just not, it's not going to matter because you're just going to disappear anyway. It does matter, because you disappear. Who knows what's on the other side?
Yes.
Once, obviously that dude came. Once again, that goes to the thought of, like, that dude came back. That's what also got me mad, is when I was watching it and he committed suicide. I go, wait, so there is, I mean, even though you don't remember what it is, he doesn't remember anything of, which makes me think aliens, because a lot of times when you see alien things, people come back or whatever, and they say, oh, I don't remember anything from being up on. Yeah, you're abducted.
I wouldn't have killed myself, because I was thinking, what if they were just transported temporarily and they're going to come back at some point?
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. Like, why didn't everybody just wait, or try to wait it out?
A temporary problem.
I'm just saying, why didn't everybody just try to wait and see if anybody else came back?
I guess.
What?
The movie could have had a totally different slant to it, but
right.
What bothered me was the motive was unclear. So that was troubling to a lot of us, that we try to think things through. And so I was just wondering what you thought about that. I mean,
with what?
The motive was unclear why they all disappeared.
Right.
Now, in the last movie, at the end of the movie, they could, well, you teased me in kindergarten, so I wanted to kill all of you, that kind of stuff. You had a motive, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end, but this was never explained. So that was unsettling, but maybe they wanted to leave that with you. So
once again, you just said that there's a freaking sequel, so that just blew my mind.
Right.
Or whatever.
I looked it up, and they said, yeah, there is a sequel, and it's just come out. So, but where is it?
I don't know. It's not on Tubi. That's all I know. But it's not on IMDb, so I didn't know about it. But that's interesting that there's a sequel to this, because that makes me wonder if the stuff that they didn't explain, either they felt like they needed to make a sequel to explain it, or if that was the whole plan the whole time, was we were going to make like a trilogy, Don't Blink trilogy. And the first one, you have no idea what's going on. The second one, you start to kind of like things start to get answered or whatever. And the third one is like the finale of like how they escape the dimension or the whatever, which kind of sucks though, because I really liked Alex's. Well, did Alex? Now the question is, once he disappeared, did he come back to that thing like, normal? Like, is he alive on the other side?
Kill himself. Why would he?
I don't know. Because then why would they take him?
Well, just to prove they can take anybody.
Nope, I don't think. Nope, you can't say that, because like they're not trying to. It doesn't look like these things are trying to prove anything to anyone. So there's obviously a plan to it.
Another one we haven't talked about. It's a time warp. And so nobody's doing anything to anybody. It's just the force of nature. They get swallowed in a black hole. And so they go, and they're in another dimension. So that could happen.
It could, but then why does it have a certain, you said earlier that there was no motive or whatever, and there really wasn't, but there was a pattern. So whenever anybody wasn't paying attention to the person or blinked, from the person, they disappeared, right? They took their eyes off of Zach Ward, and Zach Ward disappeared, even though he was dead.
There was a certain randomness to it.
It wasn't that random though. The only problem I had, honestly, with the randomness or whatever you want to call it, of it is the fact that whenever anybody was alone, they didn't just disappear. That to me was just like why didn't Jack disappear when he was walking down the stairs? Because he didn't have anybody watching him at that particular moment. When he woke up, nobody was gone.
Okay, what if this was like a mini cyclone and it goes to different parts of the house at different times? And there's no rhyme or reason to it.
There's no cyclone. You don't see it. There's an invisible cyclone.
It's like a vacuum, and it just sucks you up, depending on where it is at that time. And it doesn't even matter if you're looking at the person. Here's a thing we didn't even talk about. Do you know there were certain camera angles that were so deceptive? They did it in a sneaky way.
Right.
If you pay attention, that person would disappear, and like, wait a minute, did that person just disappear? We didn't see it. And
right.
Somewhere I wrote it down.
A lot of times it was off camera, because the whole idea is you're not supposed to see it happen. It's like, okay, once again, camera thing with what you were bring back they had sex, and then they're in the bed. He turns his body for a second, he comes back and she's gone. But the way they did that was very like with the camera going down into the sheets, and when it comes back up, she's gone, right? Which is a Hitchcock move, is from like Rope, where where the person is going in, and it will go into we haven't even discussed Rope on Hooked on Hitchcock yet, but it would go into your shirt, Larry. So look, it would go into your shirt. It will go whoosh into your shirt, and then the camera will pull back, and it would look like it's the same scene, but really what they had done was, the reason they would go into the shirt was so that they could cut, without it looking like a cut and everything. And then they pull back, and it would actually be, they have to change they would have to change the film, or maybe they had to change, they had to quit for the day, but you know what I mean? So like they would go into your I can't even see the camera, go into your shirt, and then they come back, and it's just a different cut. So that's what they did, was when she's in the, they would go down, you would see the sheet, they'd probably cut, and then she'd come back and she's gone, right? Because you just saw her 2 seconds ago, cut and everything. So it's a very, to go back, this is a very Hitchcockian sort of like,
Yeah.
I honestly, you know what? I will say this. I hope that the director doesn't ever get mad at me for saying this. I will say that the director reminds me of Hitchcock meets M. Night Shyamalan. Like,
Oh,
you know, like it's a similar thing of like, oh my god, the only difference is both those guys would have freaking had an ending that you would have sort of understood what was going on, but maybe Hitchcock wouldn't have, you know.
with Camelot. But what you're saying is right. The camera angles trick our eye into not noticing when somebody disappears.
But
And
it was always to cut so that whenever they come back up from it or whatever, all of a sudden the person would be gone and they'd be like, where did that person go? They were just here. Instead of like CGIing them out or something like that, like digitally removing them, they did that. And I thought that was kind of cool because I noticed it. I especially noticed it when I really realized it was when they did it on the bed. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But then I'm like, okay, so that's what they're doing is they're basically, they'll have it so the person will be there, then all of a sudden they won't. But see, the funny thing is when the first girl disappears, Tracy, Mina Savari's character, she was in that group with the group, right? Like she was there, and then all of a sudden we don't notice that she's gone, right? And they did such a good job because I wasn't focused on her, because there's so many of the characters. I was focused on the stuff that they're going on, right? All of a sudden she's gone and they're like, where is she? Like I thought that was kind of cool.
yeah, no, it's well done. It's a great movie.
It was a lot better than I was expecting. And that's not because like I wasn't looking at this like badly in my mind. I was going around thinking, okay, I've never heard of this movie, right? I see this on Tubi. It looks kind of cool. It's got a pretty damn good cast. Mina Savari's only in it for like 10 minutes, but Brian Austin Green's in it for the whole thing, and Zach Ward's in it, and we got Robert Picardo. I mean, everybody,
He's twice. Brian Austin Green is twice as old as anybody else in the cast, other than Picardo. He's in his 20s. They're in their 20s. As I looked him up, his age, he was 41 at the time.
Mm-hmm. Alex, Zach Ward's character, the red hair guy, he was I think he's around Brian Austin Green's age. So
I guess you like older guys.
Yeah.
Anyway,
which I thought was a little okay. So I thought there was a little weird because there was one girl, they said she was like 22 or something. I was like, she's in her 30s. There's no way, like she is not 22 years old. I don't think she was,
Okay. Well, anyway.
The youngest. Did you look her up? Did you look her age up or anything?
I did. Some I did. But yeah, I was surprised at some of the ages. But that Menace Savara, no, I'm sorry, Joanne Kelly. Now I'm not sure who she played. I didn't put her.
She played the main. She played the not the main. Well, I guess she's technically the main girl because she's the last girl to disappear.
That's the one. Yeah, she was on a TV show called Disappearance, and then later.
Oh, that's funny.
Called Vanished.
Oh my goodness. I see a theme in her career there.
It's like, what? This is very apropos. So
wait, when was Disappearance?
She's from Newfoundland. Nobody lives in Newfoundland, so that's appropriate too.
Yeah, but wait, when was Disappearance? Was that like? Do you got the dates on those?
I don't have a date on that. I just noticed he was on a TV show. I looked for their credit, and then Van later. Like, no wonder they picked her to be in this.
Unless, I'm wondering if she was in it afterwards, and they're like, she's starting to get typecast as being the chick in a Vanished movie or TV show.
Not Disappearance, but Vanished. Maybe she was.
She's got to be in another, movie like that.
Yeah, everything that connects to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just keep going. Just keep going. That'll be funny.
Didn't you love that some of those things that they said? Alex says nothing safe comes back from a dark place. So he's quoting Stephen King.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
And then did you notice how sarcastic they were when they first started? Oh my God, some real zingers. I
mean,
wrote it down, see if I can find them. So they were talking about, one guy was talking about how he did this and that. And the guy says, well, color me impressed. I thought, ooh, there's a good one. Color me impressed. It's the real sarcastic stuff, and a couple other things too. I didn't underline it, so I don't know what it is. But
all I remember is the one dude was pissing in the fucking car. I was like, what the fuck? This is how this movie is starting, with him fucking pissing in the car.
Cars, one girl vomits, another car, the guy pees in a bottle.
Yeah. Like, what is going on here? And it's funny, they say she vomited all over the car. I didn't notice any vomit. Like, it didn't look that bad to me.
I guess they weren't that gross, but I mean, it wasn't a real gross movie to like some.
I probably showed you some grosser ones. So no, it's not. It wasn't made to be that way. In fact, I mean, honestly, if there weren't some of the stuff that they had in it, this would almost be a PG-13 movie. Like this wasn't entirely, and it wasn't really like, this is 31 Days of Horror. This isn't really of indie horror. This really isn't that like horror. Like, it's more thriller, sci-fi, which is fine, but it's got a little bit of horror elements to it, especially there's a lot of the stuff with Alex, like, basically having a like freak out meltdown, stuff.
Probably one of the main people to be like sarcastic and kind of antisocial. But what was the one thing that I wanted to talk about? We kind of closed over. I don't know. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about.
Well, I wanted to bring up something. So Alex's car all of a sudden doesn't have gas in it or whatever, right? Like, remember? Like,
none of them do. They're 200 miles from any gas station. And that's why, that's what I wanted to talk about, their conflict. The stays versus the goes.
Right.
Those who wanted to go and those who wanted to stay. And they had a major conflict over that. So no, we'll never make it. Then we'd be stuck out some other place. And this thing might be out there too. We don't know. And here we got food, we got shelter, we got this and that. But the opening montage is when they get there and we get to see the purse, we get the half-eaten food, we got the hot pan that he burns his fingers on, and all these people left in the middle of the nothing. I mean, it's fled for no reason, and you kind of wonder what the hell.
Yeah.
So
nobody. I mean, and that makes me. And all the birds are gone. All the
yes.
And I thought that was actually very cool, because that must have been hard. I'm not gonna lie. That must have been hard to find either an area that really actually just didn't have any wildlife in it, or if they did, they either filmed it or didn't have the sound. Like, they took out, digitally removed every sound of any bird or something, because I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And the way they were appreciating it, he said, have you noticed there's no sound? I go, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then later they were going, but there's no sound, nothing, no birds, no bugs, no animals of any kind. And you're like, you get creepy, you're getting chills suddenly.
I know. And there's that one line of like, they were just trying to find a place that had peace and quiet. And here,
I love getting away from the city noises, but
be careful, man. You could disappear.
I was in a movie called Diary, and we kind of borrowed from this. I don't know exactly if we did this after. No, we did this before this. Maybe they stole it from us. Or I play this guy named Red, and I'm out there, and I'm a contractor working on this whole cabin, and the thing's full of zombies, and we don't know it. They've killed everything. I was saying, have you ever noticed that there's no sound of any kind? There's no squirrels or anything. There's nothing. And I'm telling my partner that there's not, and they zoom up on my eyes, and I'm kind of shifting around, and it's kind of creepy. And I
It
was thinking as I
sounds
saw this, and so
that
it wasn't
sounds really creepy.
snow.
Jesus.
It was a short, 45 minutes short. 15 more minutes, it could have been a feature. But it's
I
a great.
know. That does not drive you nuts sometimes. I'm at like, because we do a short film Saturday on Indie Film Cafe. Paul and I do, and we'll watch like a 55-minute short basically. And I'm like, just put 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes, make a freaking feature.
Carubius about this. I said it was his first feature, and I don't think he made another one. But these are makeup done, and but I said, can't we just put another 10 minutes in there or whatever, and but have a 10 year later have me coming out of the cellar as a zombie, because that's how I die. I get
Yeah.
pulled down in the cellar, and and do something like that. And he said, nah, I'll leave it as it is. Like, but you can't sell that. They didn't make any money on it. And everybody's seen it, loves it. It's one of the best things I've ever
Maybe
seen.
you can. Maybe you can add a 10-year later now or 20-year later now.
I don't have control. He won't do it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. That's all up to him. I like this movie that it was only like an hour and a half or so. Like a little over an hour and a half, and that really made me happy. We've watched movies that are just too long. On these indie 31 days of indie horror. It's just too long. And I'm like, you can't make a 2 hour long like indie horror flick that. I mean, most of the time those are just boring. They have to make, unless it's like an epic, battle and everything's so interesting that's going on.
So the perfect length would be between 80 and 90 minutes, if you think.
I say 75 to 140. No, not 140. Jesus, an hour and 40.
Okay.
You know,
100 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, 100 minutes. So, those lengths, because I think once you get past some, and I will forgive most movies, period, especially indie films, because they're really trying, but like, it drives me crazy to see like the 75-minute movies and the people are just stretching things, like the credits are going this slow, and
Right.
all that shit just drives me fucking nuts. This movie I honestly didn't think anything was slow at all. Like I was into it. I was like, that would actually surprise me, because there's a lot of times I'm very easily to be on the phone and just looking at whatever. But I kind of wanted, because I did not want to blink when I was watching this movie. I didn't want to miss something, because then I'd have to rewind it and be like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah, after that movie, my eyes were hurting so bad because I hadn't blinked in so long.
Yeah.
I still missed everything.
I know there are times I miss things, and that is a good warning in the movie. Don't blink. You're you yourself might miss something. And
Us not to blink.
yeah, telling us not to blink. What I liked? I liked the really good touches with the don't blink on the like it was written, and then it also the help me on like that he kicks, and did you notice that? Yeah, the help me. Oh my goodness, that stuff was so cool. I was really into that. So it was, honestly, all in all, I really had a good time with this movie. It was a fun movie. I totally recommend it. I'll probably start recommending it to people if anybody wants to see something. But I will warn people. I will warn people. You either really love this movie or you'll hate it. I don't think there's anybody that's like meh about it. I think there's people that are gonna love it or hate it by the end of the movie, because because if you have stuck all the way to the end, you got to be like me, where you are wondering, what is happening, and the fact that they don't ever show it, is something that gotta piss people off, but didn't piss me off. I liked it. I like that kind of thing. I'm sure you didn't. I'm sure you would have rather had some closure, right?
Well, in a way, the way that the cavalry disappeared, that so suddenly. I mean, it was like in and out. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Could you milk this a little bit? So I was a little disappointed in that.
Well, I was wondering, okay, so this actually got me thinking when I was watching it, going, okay, so she puts her head down or whatever for a second. She gets back up and nobody is around, right? Was that because of her?
Maybe she's in another dimension.
Well,
And
no, because like she looks around and like all those cavalry is gone and she's stuck in the fucking police, thing. In those police cars, the back seats don't have like, doors that you can open. So once they shut, you're locked in there. So I'm like, that kind of sucks. Maybe that's another reason she's like, I'm just want to disappear now. But anyway, the point is like they disappear, right? So was she in control of that at all? Like, was it because of her that they all disappeared? Because they were all looking at each other, they're all watching it.
that
Like,
didn't ring true for me. I was a little disappointed. Yeah.
you're a little
Uh,
disappointed that they just disappeared.
this is illogical. This doesn't fit the pattern.
It,
So
it does, but it doesn't because those people were sort of outsiders, you know? They
they're
weren't
all,
part of the group. I know,
all
but they weren't part of her core group, you know? I don't know. Maybe it was just
doing
one.
one with her group and a different way with a different group. I don't know.
Right.
So
So they're
it's just
mixing with another group. Maybe it just didn't matter.
personally that did not belong in there.
Uh,
So
you think that it should have still had them looking around and then maybe you see each one disappear, you
it's like
know?
big surprise, like what? I turned my head around,
What
and that. But when in the overall scheme of things, I don't think it fit.
I think
So
it would have been cooler had they had more time with the cavalry. So you could see like Robert Picardo looks around, and all of a sudden his people are disappearing. And then he's just like trying to call for backup or something, and then he disappears, that kind
don't
of thing.
worry, I got this under control. It's like, yeah, right.
Right. I agree that maybe there should have been a little bit more. I mean, maybe they couldn't film it or they didn't have enough time. I don't know, but like it could have been cool if like there was some more time with them going around and looking and then disappearing because obviously this place is kind of like the Bermuda Triangle of
Yeah,
like, right?
right.
And so it's sort of like that thing where people just disappear. Now in the Bermuda Triangle, people might have just disappeared because they might have gotten drowned or something, like there's no, and then just maybe their bodies just never, whatever. But
But
nobody knows because nobody ever finds them.
not everybody disappears. Some people fly through it, and same with this. But not.
Well, no, not in this. Not in this.
No,
Everybody disappears in this.
but I mean, here and there, they kind of break the rules because it's like, well, she was looking at him, and he still disappeared, or she wasn't looking at him, and he didn't disappear, and stuff like that. I was like, what?
Mm.
So, I was trying to make sense of it. I guess there wasn't any sense to be made.
Hmm.
Anyway, it was interesting though. It made you think.
It did make you think. I mean, I will
Yeah,
agree that I don't like the fact that the cavalry just disappeared because she wasn't paying attention to them. Because then it just makes me wonder why. And and here's the thing: we don't have an answer. Like, there's no answer. You know, the director's not out there talking to people and saying, "Well, this is what happens," or there's no commentary track. I don't think that goes.
yeah,
I wanted people to like, but this is what really happened. Kind of
yeah.
thing. So who knows? So in our own like crazy little world, we have our thoughts and we have our like a Hitchcock would describe this as like an icebox conversation. You would go and you'd watch the movie at home and then go get some food out of the icebox and then start talking to people about the movie while you're going to get
Or
get food.
yeah, talk at the water cooler the next day in the office.
Exactly. Later on, it became water cooler talk. but like, in the beginning it was icebox conversation or whatever. So I like that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with like guessing and thinking and wondering, but it would be cool to have a sequel. It would be cool to have like a trilogy, where everything gets more explained. But then again, if they get explained, we might not be happy with the explanation, right?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's supposed to
Say,
be.
right. But say the explanation is like you said, the cyclone thing, right? Like there's a cyclone, like an invisible cyclone that's just taking people and putting them into an alternate dimension.
Right.
Some people might not like that idea. Like they wanted aliens. They wanted somebody else wanted um God, or whatever, whatever other explanation it could be, you know.
Now, yes. In your opinion, is this a true horror film? Or is
No, it has
history?
thriller elements to it. Thriller elements. It's got suspense and it's got sci-fi because of the potential idea that this could be aliens or something. They also talk about it could be, they don't know anything. It does. Okay, I take that back. The horror elements become when Alex cracks and he starts like taking the gun out and starts attacking everybody and starts kind of becoming this, like he even says at one point he could rape somebody, which I think is a terrible thing for anyone to say, right? Like, or whatever, or even do, obviously. But what I'm saying is like that guy like says that out loud, so it becomes sort of a horror element of like, who knows if this guy's actually going to do that, which we probably were sure he wasn't. But
it was dramatic. I don't know if it was horrific. Now, did you ever get chilled? I mean, were you ever truly scared?
I wasn't
Anytime?
scared.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because like once again it goes back to like we didn't really get a chance to spend a lot of time with everybody. And so I wasn't really scared because I was like, after a while, you see one person disappear, you see another person disappear, like,
Yeah.
but nothing happens. They just disappear. So you're like, it would be as if like all of a sudden I fade away, and then you're like, Jonathan, where'd you go? Right? You don't know where I went. It's
Um,
creepy, but it's not scary. It's not like doesn't send chills down my spine, you know. And it just doesn't seem like it'd be scary if this were something that was true, that was actually happening. That's
truly jumped out of my skin was when they first got there and they thought that woman was dead in the car. The groin.
yeah.
I jumped right out of my chair. Like that really got me. That was a good
Well,
one.
that was suspense, and that was really good. That was creepy because you weren't sure if she was alive or if she were dead and in her car. You didn't know, because at that particular moment, you didn't know her, you didn't know her boyfriend, you didn't know anybody, like you knew nobody. And you barely even knew the people that were already coming there. I mean, this could have been a serial killer movie in a cabin, or when there's a resort, there's a serial killer killing people and just hiding all the bodies, you know.
Now,
I will say there's a funny line. If you want to talk about funny lines, my favorite line of the whole movie is when they're looking for the people and they're like, "Hey, we're not, we're not here to get you or whatever. We're here to help or something." And she's like, don't, you don't say stuff like that. And he's like, well, what do you say to get people to come out from hiding? You want some candy?
yeah, that was
And then he was like, I think he said, oh, I forgot what the girl's name was. Stop taking off your clothes. I'm like,
yeah, you're right. That was funny.
yeah, it was funny. It was cute and it had some good moments. So I like that. But you were going to say something?
Well, there was another line where they're asking about a cell phone, and the guy says, "I don't have a cell phone." And he looked at him. He said, "Well, that's normal." I thought, wow, there's another funny line.
Yeah.
Well,
Sarcasm.
yeah, sarcasm.
Well, that was another thing. Like, why didn't they have cell phones? Did they ever explain that?
I'm not sure.
Wouldn't it be the first thing that you do as a, if you're going if you're at a, like, you're not going to bring at least one cell phone to your destination that you're going to.
No, it didn't work. There's no reception.
Oh God. There's no reception.
One girl was at home, but there was some had them, but they didn't work, so they didn't bother.
And then how did they not realize there was a phone there until at one point? Did the phone just appear?
I would be calling 911.
I know. That's what they did. That's how they got the cavalry to show up. So, and it seemed like the cavalry already knew what was going on, or something. There's so many people there. So.
Oh, and that thing that I didn't notice this, but I read about it in a review. They said this is the goof. They had 2 bandages over Alex's shoulder on top of his T-shirt. They didn't take it off, so they patched it over top. So
that's funny. So, that really doesn't work.
I didn't notice.
I didn't notice that either, but I'm very bad on like little details. If Paul had watched this movie, he would have noticed that or whatever. But I'm just terrible at like, that stuff.
Story that I don't notice these little things. Some people look for them.
Yeah.
They list of all of that. Well, they screwed up here. You could see the cameraman in the mirror. And it's like, well, I didn't notice that stuff.
My thing is, if I'm noticing that stuff, then obviously you're not doing your job right, because I'm not supposed to notice that shit. Obviously if because otherwise they would have like noticed it themselves and they would have said something. I don't know. So I don't like that. Like if they have continuity issues or just goofs or errors, period, like the Band-Aid, I'm not going to notice it unless it's like glaringly obvious. Like, I mean, I was wondering like where that fucking phone come from. That was my question. And like, how did they not know there was a phone there?
That was a little glaring.
Yeah. And I'm like, but you know what? Once again, maybe like whatever it is, because remember, all of a sudden it started snowing, and stuff, like there's snow on the ground and there was no birds, there's no nothing, what I mean? Things were weird at that place. Like there were things that it just was strange. So I don't know. I just think this movie was very weird and kind of out there, and they tried their hardest to make something that was very interesting and but also very weird, and like you don't know what the fuck is going on, basically, which is sometimes good, but sometimes, like we've said, kind of leaves you going like wanting answers, or whatever. And maybe we'll get some in the sequel. So if you guys, whoever, all the people that made this movie, if you made the sequel and it's out there somewhere, we can't wait to watch it sometime. Maybe we'll review it for next year's.
Yeah, it's called Don't Blink Twice.
Is that what it's called, or did you just make that up? That should be what it's called. I was gonna say Don't Blink Again, but don't obviously it has to. I would hope they wouldn't just call it Don't Blink Part 2. Like there was that Quiet Place, movie, and they called it Quiet Place Part 2. And I'm like, oh, come on. You got a movie called The Quiet Place. You can kind of make it something kind of goofy, and fun sounding for the sequel. But anyway, hopefully they don't do that. But well, thank you, Larry, for coming on the show. Stick around. I'll chat with you after. But everybody else, hope you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think. I see these like if you go on YouTube, there's actually ones that try to explain the ending, you know, and most of the time they don't give any explanation. They just kind of say what everybody else knows, which is we don't know shit, you know. So if you guys have a theory on what what it means for don't blink, or whatever, what you think the ending is, feel free to tell us. If you think it's aliens, if you think it's some kind of creature that we just never see, like an invisible creature that can make people disappear, that's kind of cool. But if that was the case, I would have loved to actually see the creature, um so I think what I really got upset about was that last thing I'm going to share is that in the credits, if I'm correct. Oh, okay. So it says Man in Black, right, for Robert Picardo, and I thought it said the Dark Man or something, but it said the Man in Black, so like Men in Black,
Yeah.
well, he was the Tommy Lee Jones, character. So there you go. Well, thank you so much, and everybody else. I hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what you guys think. Okay, bye.